want to welcome you once again to the local summit meeting. We're going to start, before we introduce ourselves, we're going to start with our 2-minute tidbit from Jeff Meakin.
2 tidbits. One tidbit, wasn't that a great event, the LMC-TV event, where we honored our president? And front page picture in the new Mamaroneck Review. I mean, who's your PR person? Second tidbit, last month we had waterways and the sound, and it was a terrific event. And it prompted me to think about our waterways and how we're somewhat protecting and somewhat not protecting. For example, there's a building being constructed on Mamaroneck Avenue, right at the base, and they washed off a concrete truck, and all of that concrete water went right into the storm drain and went right across the street and right into Mamaroneck Harbor. And so, you know, we have to think about these things. So we have, and this tidbit is meant to sort of join all of our communities, both culturally and physically, and hopefully it's interesting and once in a while amusing. We have 10 categories and 21 separate waterways in our community. And we probably have more sump pumps than, you know, up and down the sound here. We have 2 ponds, 4 harbors, 2 sounds, 1 lake, 1 reservoir, 3 coves, 1 stream, 1 brook, 3 rivers, and 3 creeks. Now, this is named ones. So, I mean, there are a lot of little tiny ponds and a lot of little tiny streams that we don't really name. All right, we have 2 major ponds. What are they? They're, pardon? No, not the duck pond. That's not really a pond. Nope. 2 major ponds we have, and they're both mill ponds. Yes, Premium Mill Pond is one, and Van Amridge Mill Pond is the other, at the other end of our 3 communities. We have actually 4 harbors. 4 harbors. Can anybody name them? Horseshoe Harbor. All right, that's a little known one. Larchmont Harbor, obviously. Mamaroneck Harbor is actually 2 harbors, even though we call it East and West Basin, but the East Basin is really Rye Neck Harbor, technically. We have 2 sounds. We have Long Island Sound, or what's the other one? Milton. No, that's up in Rye. We have Little Harbor Sound. Where's that? That's in Spanish Cove. Oh, okay. Fed by the hummocks area and so on. We have 1 lake, which is really the duck pond. What's the name of the lake? I know this, and Emmy Lou will say, this used to be quite a large lake before the thruway came. Lake Sheldrake. We have 1 reservoir, obviously the Larchmont Reservoir. We have 3 coves. Anybody want to take a shot at that? Spanish Cove? Pirates Cove? Delancey Cove, thank you. We have 1 stream, you know, 1 major name stream. Anybody know that? There's a street named after it. No, that's a river. Valley Stream, thank you, feeds into the Sheldrake. We have 1 brook. Pine Brook, thank you. And that feeds into one of our 3 rivers. We have 3 rivers, anybody name them? Sheldrake, Mamaroneck, and what does Pine Brook feed into? Premium River. And lastly, 3 creeks. 3 creeks. Otter Creek. That starts in Rye and goes along the Nature Conservancy and out to the harbor next to Mamaroneck Beach and Yacht. Guyon Creek. That starts as Beaver Swamp Brook in Rye, then Stony Brook, and then there used to be a lake on the Post Road, and under the Boston Post Road into Mamaroneck Harbor or Rye Neck Harbor or the East Basin under South Barry Avenue. What's the last creek? It's a little creek, but goes in Larchmont, huh? East Creek in Flint Park. Thank you very much. My identity, I'm sure, will not be stolen unless somebody wants to become Mr. Tidbit.
Thank you very much. We now know why we have so much flooding in this area, too. Water, water everywhere. Before we begin, once again, we're going to introduce ourselves. Elaine Chapnick, president of the local summit. Everyone will know who is here. The speakers in particular will know who is here today. Identify yourself.
Nina Resio-Cuddy, Vice President, Local Summit.
Lynette C., Local Summit Board.
Sabrina Fiddleman, Local Summit Board, LMC-TV, and Hunger Task Force.
Good morning. Shirley Hilton, Mamaroneck.
Harold Wolfson, Local Summit, and Human Rights Committee. I'd like to briefly tell you that for 27 years, the Human Rights Committee, which includes many people in this room, have sponsored and hosted the Martin Luther King celebration. For 27 years. This year, we're doing something vastly new and different. We're having a jazz festival motivated by the reading of poetry from Langston Hughes. And we will be going back to many of you. Oops, my enthusiasm, no bounds. So we'll be coming back to you in due course and asking you to help us bring an audience to this great celebration for Martin Luther King. It probably will be in the high school. We are in the finishing touches of negotiating with the high school people. Right, Keith? Right.
Fran Snedeker, Larchmont. Jeffrey Wiener.
Janet O'Connell, Summit, and At Home on the Sound. And I just wanted to remind everybody that Saturday is the St. John's Bazaar. It's from 10 to 3 at Fountain Square in Larchmont. And we're accepting donations all this week. If you have books, collectibles, gigas, and toys. And then if you come back on Saturday, every single dollar of the proceeds goes to local charities, particularly groups that help women and children. That's our mandate for the group that runs the bazaar. So hope to see you there.
John Bradley at Home on the Sound and Summit Board. One more time. John Bradley at Home on the Sound and Summit Board.
Jeff Megan, LMC-TV and Summit Board.
Janet Buckbinder, Summit Board, and Larchmont Mamaroneck Radar.
Mary Lee Berridge. Want to remind everyone, tomorrow evening is Interfaith, 7 o'clock, Larchmont Avenue Church. Always a beautiful service and very, very important to this community. Thanksgiving Interfaith. That's tomorrow night. I also am with the Summit Board and Harold's group. I'm one of his. I obey Harold on the human rights. All right. Please be sure to sign if you haven't, and it's $8, and the envelope is green. So thank you for coming. Here we go.
Kay Francis Richards, Summit Board.
George Latimer, New York State.
Peter Weiss, members of the community.
Ruth Weiss, community member.
Judy Silberstein, League of Women Voters.
Bob Hayden, Summit Board, and volunteer at Home on the Sound.
Good morning, Keith Yiza, Summit Board, Mamaroneck Public Schools.
Jeremy Yingpen, formerly with Washingtonville Housing Alliance, now consultant to the not-for-profit sector.
Good morning. Susie Gedney. I'm a realtor at Julie B. Fee Real Estate in Larchmont. I'm also a volunteer for Hope Community Services in New Rochelle.
Emily Sleeper at Home on the Sound.
Iris Freet, Hope Community Services. I just wanted to tell you that we will be giving out flu shots tomorrow at Hope, and we're going to be giving out 1,000 turkeys, so we need help, please.
Drayton Garrity, Town of Mamaroneck. Thank you.
Susan Amlick, St. John's Outreach in Kemper Park.
Marie Mackey, community member.
Susan Riley, the Mamaroneck Public Library. Please remember the library budget vote and trustee election is on December 11th.
Paula Persinger, a resident of the Larchmont.
Morning, Richard. And pastor of United Methodist.
Mike Rosenbaum, community member.
Janet DeMacy, Summit Board and Continuing Education.
Jane Orans, Community Counseling Center.
Doreen Cashel, Summit Board, Don Bosco Workers.
Elizabeth Sanger, Summit Board and Human Rights Committee.
Bob Sanger, local resident.
Thank you, everyone. And now I'm going to turn the program over to Nina Cuddy.
Good morning, everyone. The Summit Executive Board decided to, the Summit Board decided to have a presentation on identity theft, and that's this morning. Am I not like this? Like this? Like this? I feel like singing. We are very lucky to have 3 speakers with us today. Our first speaker is Mr. John Gachon. I have to read. He is the acting director of the Consumer Protection Board in Westchester County, and he is the director of Weights and Measures for Westchester County. He's been a member of the Department of Consumer Protection for the past 25 years. He began his career as a field inspector, advanced to senior inspector, deputy director of Weights and Measures, and then director of Weights and Measures in 2007. And since 2010, he's been our acting director of Consumer Protection, but he still retains the title of director of Weights and Measures. And his responsibilities include managing the operation. Did I do that? I did. Oh. Include managing the operation of the Department of Consumer Protection, along with enforcement of county, state, and state consumer protection laws. And he's also the department's representative before legislative officials, consumer, civic groups, and the media. He is currently the chairman-elect of the National Conference on Weights and Measures. And will be one of our first speakers. Our other 2 speakers include 2 members of the Mamaroneck Town Police Department. The first is Lieutenant Matthew Melrose, who's been with the Town of Mamaroneck Police Department for 15 years and was assigned as the Detective Division Supervisor 3 years ago. And along with him is Detective Jason Florkowski, who's been with the Town of Mamaroneck Police Department for 14 years, and both our detectives previously were with New York City Police Department. We want to touch briefly on, as briefly as you care, what is identity theft, how to prevent it, what is the role of the police, what about credit scores, how do credit agencies play into it. So I'm going to turn this over to Mr. Gachon, and I'm going to advise everybody that there are handouts. I think they are almost all of them up here, and some there that will be passed out during the course of the program. Okay, so with no further ado, I present Mr. Gachon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Where do I stick this?
Yeah, right in here. Thank you. Can everyone hear me? Okay. Thank you. Thank you to Nina. Thank you to Elaine for having me here this morning, and thank you to the members of the town PD for their presence also. It's a pleasure to be down here. An old friend, he was, maybe still around the room somewhere, Senator Latimer. I've known for a long, long time, very supportive of our department when he was with Westchester County. And also another old friend of many of your people here, Mrs. Price, Elaine Price, was our director about 10 years or so ago. So we've always had a strong attachment to the Sound Shore area. Again, thank you for having me. Thank you on behalf of the county executive, Rob Astorino. Again, as I said, it's a pleasure to be here. Senator, good to see you. Long time. Nina had asked that I touch on a few subjects, and really my focus will be just an overview of ID theft, and the detectives and Lieutenant Melrose will jump in, and they'll also have their own thing. So really it'll be very informative this morning. Very briefly, our department, as Nina said, is located up in White Plains. We have a staff of about 20. We really handle any type of consumer complaint, consumer transaction. If anyone has a problem, concern, question, feel free to contact us by phone, email, internet. A lot of our functions are online. We will get back to you as soon as we can. Usually it's within a day or so. And we field questions on just about any subject you can imagine that involves any type of consumer transaction. At the end of the program, I'll gladly answer any non-identity theft questions. Usually I get a question about gasoline prices, or why is credit different than cash, and all those types of things. And fortunately gas prices have been going down the last few weeks, so hopefully there'll be less and less concern about that as the time goes on. Also, heating oil becomes important now, and the cost of heating oil, fortunately it's down from last year. But just to jump into the program, and feel free along the way to ask any questions. So I like lots of questions. Basically, Nina said to me, well, what is ID theft? And in a nutshell, it's when someone takes some of your personal information and opens up new accounts, opens up bank accounts, files your taxes, files taxes using your personal information. They've captured some part of your identity, whether it's your date of birth, whether it's account information from some existing credit card you have or from your mortgage, or if they've captured your social security number. ID theft is to the point where it's a crime, where they've taken information from you and opened new credit. And Lieutenant, I'm sure will tell you, 99 out of 100 times you don't even know what's going on. There's also when your identity is compromised, and that's a little different, and generally that's, yes, it is a crime, but it's not anything that's really prosecuted because it's something you can take care of yourself. Your identity is compromised when there's an unauthorized charge on some account you have. You receive your Visa bill at the end of the month, and here's a charge for a place that you've never been to, for an item you don't even know most times what it is. And it's probably happened to most everybody in this room, and everybody in this room knows somebody it's happened to. It's happened to me. I was away on vacation. I came back a few months later. There was a charge for a purchase in Texas. Well, I wasn't vacationing in Texas, and it was an item, I'm not a hunter, it was from a hunting store. I contacted the company, the card company, and they took care of it right away. So two different things, and it should be considered as much a cause of concern if your identity is compromised versus your identity is stolen, because compromise could very well lead to your identity being stolen. So just keep that in mind. So really that's the distinction between the two. Usually without a lot of effort you can take care of a compromised identity. It's an account you would close out. Simple as that. Yeah?
What is most typically how do they get the number to make an unauthorized charge?
9 times out of 10, it's a traditional way. Someone at a retailer has made a copy of your information from your card when you've made a purchase. A lot of times it's a restaurant, never here, I'm sure. It's a restaurant or an eating establishment or somewhere where you're out making, or a smaller retailer sometimes where they don't have the controls maybe that a larger retailer has. Most times it's through traditional ways. It's not being hacked into if you're doing something online.
But, like the Texas charge,
Mhm.
I had a charge on my account
Mhm.
several months ago, a place in Asheville, North Carolina.
Mhm.
How in the world did somebody in Asheville, North Carolina get
It could have been from any number of sources. The only way they would really find out is if whoever made that fraudulent charge or that illegal charge, if they questioned them and find out how they got the information. It could have been from a purchase you made in a small store here in Westchester. Someone at that store captures that information, sends it along to a group of people who are in the business of running up credit, stealing fraudulent charges, or stealing identities. With the internet and with cyberspace, I mean, you order stuff from overseas now and it comes in within a matter of days. That information's going overseas, it's coming back. So anywhere along the way, it could be grabbed up. So, that is the distinction between the two. Nina asked a few other items I had sent him to, and again, I'm just going to be brief, so please ask questions along the way. Credit checks and credit agencies. Remember, there's 3 major credit agencies. Experian, TransUnion, and Equifax. And they are the agencies that collect your credit information. Usually there's one that's the lead that takes depending on the cards you use, the mortgage company you use, what your credit history is. They've collected information over the years about you, your spending habits, your lending habits, your payment habits. And those three agencies really drive the credit industry in this country. It's important to remember that legally, under federal law, you're entitled to one free credit report from each of those agencies every year. And a good way to ensure that your credit has not been compromised or stolen is to get one of those reports each year from each of those agencies. And in some of the handouts I have here, the information is there. It's called the annualcreditreport.com. It's information you can get off the internet, and they'll tell you how to do it. That's the only way you know. We were talking a little bit before we started this morning, the detectives and I, and we were talking with Nina, and she said, well, how do you kind of know if your identity's been stolen? And one of the best ways to know is to check your credit report to see if someone opened accounts in your name using your information. If someone does that, they are not going to put your address down as the billing address. It's going to go somewhere else, which the mail you're never going to see. It could be 18 months or 2 years before you even know your identity is stolen. That's why it's important to get a credit report every year from each of the agencies. And I would stagger them over the course of the year. So you get one from Equifax early in the year, one from TransUnion later in the year, and then the Experian maybe in the middle of the year. They're free, and they won't affect your credit. I know some people have concerns with the number of times. Credit agencies look at the number of times you've asked for new credit, or they call it a hit, where someone searched your credit history, and those don't count against it. And I know, especially for younger couples trying to get a mortgage or someone trying to get a mortgage, the number of times their credit report was visited is given consideration when they're going for that mortgage. So these don't count against that, and they're allowable under federal law. So just a couple of facts, and I probably should have given these a little earlier, and I will need my glasses for this. About 10 million people a year are victims of ID theft, and that's not compromising. That's theft. That's actual accounts. Yeah. That breaks down to about 19 people every minute. Yeah. And of the victims of ID theft, 32% of the time, the people that are victims of their own family members. 18% are friends, neighbors. Another 10% or so are coworkers. Little things, and I know the detectives preach this all the time. If you're in the workplace, you walk away, you leave your purse or your personal stuff, it's out there in the open. It doesn't take long for somebody to go through it. I even tell the people in my office, put that in your drawer. Put your bag in your drawer, put your personal information away. I see people leave their wallets on their desks. If you're away for it only takes a matter of minutes for someone to take a card or write down the numbers from the card. There's nothing to it, so it's just amazing. It is the fastest growing crime, and I don't see anything else catching up real soon. So, yeah.
With all of that, most of the things are automated now.
Uh-huh.
Take pictures.
Mm-hmm.
Just anything's over the internet. How do you stay ahead of the curve?
Certainly, well, let's put it in the context of maybe using an ATM. There is a video record, and I'm sure the detectives know more about this than I am. There is a video record, but recently, it's about a year, 18 months ago, there was a number of banks in Harrison and Rye, in that area. The ATMs were compromised because there was extra cameras. If you're at an ATM, cover up as you're punching in. All you need to do is put your hand over the screen while you're punching the numbers. Look at an ATM to see if there's a anything's out of the ordinary. If there's a lot of pamphlets around it, that means sometimes they're trying to hide something like a camera where they can capture your information. If the ATM looks unusual, the part where you actually slip your card in, there might be a skimmer on top of that. And I don't want to steal away from the detective. So that's some of the stuff that they deal with every day. Yeah, sorry. But like that. The other thing is check your accounts religiously. Check your accounts every other day. So many things now are online. You have access to the purchases you made within a matter of minutes if you go online and look. And really, you have to be very, very diligent and religious about doing that. Myself, I'm not the greatest at that, but certainly checking every couple of days what your purchases were, will really be one of the best ways to do it. So I use an acronym the acronym SCAM, and I'm going to quickly run through it, and I have a handout on it. But basically, each letter will help you in preventing ID theft and keep you conscious of what goes on in the marketplace. And the first letter of SCAM, and I have a handout, so you don't need to write it down, is be stingy with your personal information, especially in the workplace or out in public. You're providing information over the phone. People can write down those numbers, what's your date of birth, those types of things. If you're not comfortable giving out information, find another way to do it. A lot of times things are still done by phone. What's your date of birth? They ask you to punch it in, which is better than actually saying it. And you're covering up your phone while you're doing that. Check your financial information regularly. I like to say religiously. Certainly that's going to help. Ask for the credit reports. We talked a little bit about that. And maintain careful records. And records that you only need to keep. Some records, credit card records, statements, billing, if you still get paper, you only need to keep 18 months, if that much. Get it shredded. Everybody should invest in a shredder. It's not a lot of money. It's well worth it. The county has a recycling facility up in Valhalla. You can bring old papers up there. They will gladly shred it. They also have the mobile shredder, which I know at times makes appearances at Town Hall, different places around the community. Those are things, you really should take advantage of. So there's a few things you can do to help yourself. Credit scores, very briefly, that's different than your credit report. Everybody has a credit score. It's based on your buying history, the amount of money you owe, potential credit, those types of things. Be honest with you, it was designed by a group of people that, and I really firmly believe it was meant not to be understood by the rest of us. Because I've read and read and read, and I'm a college graduate, and I still have trouble explaining what Fair Isaac means and those types of things. So there's information on the internet, but I really believe it was meant to confuse people. And really, the other thing is, we talked a little bit about it. Nita and the detectives and I were talking before the program, is try to simplify your credit as best you can. When you get a credit report, you're going to probably see an account on there that you haven't used for years. If you're not using it, close it out. It goes against you if you need to borrow in the future. Also, it could be compromised. You could be carrying around a card or have a card at home. You don't even remember, and if it goes missing, you're not going to know it went missing. So certainly, simplify your credit. I don't see a need for 2 and 3 and 4 Visa cards. You need one, and then you're going to get one bill, and you're going to know where all your purchases are. Everybody has a bank ATM card now, so 1 or 2 credit cards, whether it's an Amex, Visa, MasterCard, and your bank card. And really, there isn't a place that won't take, any of those cards. Simplify your credit best you can. And really, you make things easier, and you make things easier for anybody that has to, assist you along the way. I mean, you find things. I know I have 2 or 3 cards in my drawer. At the end of the year, those accounts are going to be closed. Sometimes an electronics store. You may want to make a purchase, and they may give you another additional 10 or 15% if you use their card. Open the account, use the card, keep it a little while. Never going to use it again. Close the account. Comes off your credit report. You limit your liability that way. So some simple things you can do yourself just to make life a little easier. So I'm going to end there, and then after yeah.
Are you going to talk at all about online problems with
Sir.
identity theft? Because, for example, last week I've been harassed on a daily basis
Mhm.
by these people telling me that they're from Microsoft,
Mhm.
and that my computer is showing errors.
Mhm.
And they want me to log on, and in fact, I do have a large, error reporting thing. And then I knew it was a scam, but at one point I decided to just see how far they would go. And what they try and do is they try and log on to your computer. What's the word I want? From far,
Right.
remotely, right?
Right.
And at that point, of course, I hung up. I wasn't right. But they do keep calling. Their phone number goes to a travel agency in upstate New York specializing in trips to India.
Mhm.
And, but, sorry,
She's got to speak into it.
Where's the other?
Speak directly into the end of it.
You know what, try this. Speak right into that. I'm talking about the phone calls that we
Right.
get, that sound very realistic. And they want to get onto your computer, or they want information, this is the last chance you have to reduce your credit card interest, so forth and so on.
Sure.
But this one that I got where they wanted to come in remotely into my computer, it really sounded incredibly realistic. I mean, I can clearly imagine that many people would go with this and worry about it,
Sure.
and let them log on and clear out your error reports.
Sure.
But meanwhile, once they've logged on to your computer, don't they then have access to
Yes.
everything?
Mhm.
So this is these kinds
Sure.
of things are, who do we report
Sure.
these things to?
Well, I'll talk about that a little bit.
Oh, okay, thanks.
Just as a general rule, as a consumer, and unsolicited phone calls, there is a do not call list. It doesn't work for everything. And it seems like lately it's worked for less and less. There are exemptions to the do not call list, charitable organizations, political organizations. The best advice I give people, hang up on the numbers. About a year or so ago, we had a major problem with a energy company. The call was, the come on was, go get your electric bill. That's how they started the phone call.
Right.
You have to hang up. We traced that number to about 6 different locations and had no luck on finding out who was initiating it. Finally, we contacted Con Ed. They put out a news release and in their tweets and Facebook. It seems like those calls have started again, and maybe it's the time of year.
Yeah.
The best advice I can give is to hang up. Even better advice is filter the calls with your answering machine. They're not going to leave a message. And put your answering machine at 3 rings. So it's not ringing to 8 rings and then the message starts. Filter the calls. I regularly do it at home. We know it's, my daughter's in college, it's the Alumni Fund. College I went to, it's the Alumni Fund. It's the Police Association, which these guys have absolutely nothing to do with.
Right.
Absolutely nothing. They don't see their money. Their PPA doesn't see their money. Their charities don't see the money. Answering machine works great. You have answering machine options also, through, depending on your service, whether you have Verizon, is it Optimum, and is your cable company in Mamaroneck, town of Mamaroneck? Unfortunately, the calls are not going to stop. They reach a threshold, the number of calls, then the AG's office or the Federal Trade Commission or the Justice Department will take action. But unfortunately, by then, many of us have had 100, those calls around. That's the way you have to treat it, and I know many times you'll see an email that looks like it comes from somebody you know.
Right.
Unless you're 100% sure. The other part of that is with someone helping you with your computer and stuff. If you need help with your computer, you initiate the call. If you have a question about your credit card, you initiate the call. Your credit card companies are not going to call you. Your legitimate companies are not going to call you, and they'll tell you, we don't call you. That's the way you have to think about it. Unless it's a security division, which sometimes says we've seen improper activity. then you can call back the number on the back of your card.
I think maybe this might lead into an
No, I don't want to. Yeah, yeah. I don't want
How
to.
they investigate,
Right.
what they do with the reports,
Okay.
what the success of prosecution is.
All right, I'll go over those few things that Nina just discussed. Good morning, thanks for having us. And then I got a couple of things to go over. I'll be real quick and short, and then if there's any questions, we can get all the questions in before we get out of here. So, the role of the police when it comes to identity theft. The biggest question we get from the residents is they call up, should they make a report? Should they file a police report? Because what's going to happen? So if you feel your identity's been compromised, or your credit card's been used, or some type of credit's been opened up in your name, you should always file a police report. This way, it's always on record that this has happened. So later on down the line, if you discover something else has occurred, at least it's on record that maybe 3 months ago you filed this report and you're not responsible for any of the charges or anything like that. So the process to file a police report is you just call your local police department, be it if you live in Mamaroneck Village, Larchmont Village, the town of Mamaroneck, call the general number, and they'll send up a uniformed police officer to your residence. And if you don't want that, you're more than welcome to come in person. And they'll have you fill out what they call an affidavit, a voluntary statement. You complete the statement with what occurred, what you found out. If you have any documentation that supports that, like you got a letter in the mail, you got a credit card bill with unauthorized charges, you bring that with you. And that's mostly when you're going to find out that your identity has been compromised, because a bank sent you a letter saying that the loan you applied for, has come through. Or you're going to open up your charge card and you're going to see unauthorized charges. You bring all that documentation with you, any bank records. The officer will make photocopies of it, and they'll put it with the report that they complete with your voluntary statement. And then it will get forwarded to us in the back, the detective division, where we'll start an investigation on what we can find out for you. So with that said, by the time we receive the report, someone in the detective division, myself or one of the detectives, will reach out to you probably within a 24-hour time period, depending on if it's a weekend or during the week. And we'll touch base with you. We'll go over your complaint. We'll see if you've had any more information come through since you filed the report. And after that's done, what we do is, depending on what it is, if it's a bank, we have a good relationship with a lot of the banks. And we have some contacts that we can reach out to, and if a loan was attempted to be opened, we can get some information from them. There are some laws, so they can only give us limited information until a subpoena is required. So depending on what we get from them, we take the next step. If someone came in person, we'll possibly go down to the bank and we'll view videos to see if we can get someone on video. And this is credit card purchases too. It's very common if your credit card's been stolen or the number's been compromised, like they'll go, a lot of times we'll get it Home Depot, stores like that, and they got some pretty good video. But the problem with video is you may have a good photo of somebody, but if you don't know who that somebody is, it's like a fingerprint. You have a fingerprint, but if that fingerprint's not on file, it's pretty much useless. So that's how we follow up. As John was saying earlier, a lot of times just identity is compromised where there's a single charge or an attempt on a loan application has been made. On those, there's no financial loss. So it really doesn't go any further than that. You can't prosecute it. First, you can't ID the person who did it, and if you did, it's tough to prosecute because there's no financial loss to the victim. And that same goes with credit cards. These days, the banks and the big stores like the Macy's, the Home Depots, the Walmarts, they're pretty much instantly refunding the loss that you took. Once you file that police report and you send them a copy of that, they're very good at you giving your money back and getting it back into your account. So without a financial loss, it's pretty tough for us to continue on, and even if we do, it's pretty tough for the DA's office to prosecute something when there is no financial loss. What it turns out to be is a big inconvenience for the victim, because now they have to do a lot of phone calls and paperwork and letter sending to get the stuff taken off their credit report. So with that said, that's our role, and that's how the prosecution goes. Unfortunately, it's not very prosecutable. In the town alone, just in the town of Mamaroneck, we've had this year we've had 25 reports of identity theft. Now, that doesn't seem like a lot because it is one of the most growing crimes out there. So we're pretty lucky that in this area it isn't that many. But out of those 25, I'm sorry?
If the people are reporting.
Right, if the people are reporting it. You know, that's, not everyone reports it. We have 25 reported, which doesn't seem like a lot. Out of that 25, we've made one arrest. We've made 2 arrests, I'm sorry. We made 2 arrests. One was prosecuted and charged and got convicted some time, which we'll go over a couple of the cases in a little while. And the other one, the case was dismissed because there just wasn't enough evidence to pursue it. Yes, ma'am?
The one you prosecuted, was that, what, how did that person have access?
Well, it was more of a telephone scam with some criminal impersonation, which I'll discuss it a little bit and go into some detail at the end. So, and the other ones we still have open, and we're still trying to get more information, but, you know, there comes a point where it just has to, you know, we have to put it to a close, and if something comes up at a later time, it can always be reopened. So with that said, Nina wanted me to speak about organized crime and identity theft. And for me, that's a pretty hot topic, because in the town, there's really not much organized crime with identity theft. But we have this thing that we call scams. And they do, you want to hand out? Detective Flick is going to hand out a bunch of books. Inside the front cover are lots of handouts with information, and one of the information is on scams. Scams are when you get these telephone calls. You get a lot of people calling up, and they say some stuff to try to make you believe that you know them. Like, if you answer the phone, they say, "Hi, Grandma, hi, Grandpa," and you'll say, "Oh, John?" And now they're like, "Yeah, it's John." We had one the other day. I'm in the Dominican Republic. I lost my wallet. I lost my money. Can you, Western Union me down $1,500? And they'll just keep pushing, and they'll keep pushing, and they'll keep pushing until you do it. And then once you do it, you'll get back home after your Western Union. The phone will ring, and they'll go, "Hi, Grandma, it's John. I got you $1,500, but now this happened. Can you send me another $800? So that's a big problem we have around here, are scams. And they may meet you in the Stop and Shop parking lot because they got a check for $3,000, and they need your ID to take you to the bank, so, because they don't have an account right now, and they want you to cash it, but they'll give you $200 of it, but now they got all your information because they used your driver's license. So you got to understand, if you don't know this person, you don't send them Western Union, or CVS has green dot cards where it's pretty much just sending cash. You go to a CVS, you get a green dot card, you pay $500, they put $500 cash on it. You go home, you scratch off the number, you give them the number, and they're able to go on their end and get it. And it's not traceable. You can't locate those people. So it's pretty much like sending cash, and you never get it back. The way that they get your credit card numbers, or some of the ways, are going to be card skimming, which John talked about a little bit earlier. With the ATM machines, we spoke about that real quickly. They insert, where you slide your card in, they actually have an insert that goes right over that looks like another insert. So whatever I do, first thing I try to do is, I always try to go to my own ATM. Whenever, if I know I'm going somewhere, I need some cash, I'll make it a point to go to my bank and go to my ATM. Obviously, that's not always possible. So my wife calls me paranoid, because I pull up to an ATM, and I run my finger all around the inseams and stuff to see if there's any little pin cameras or anything like that. Wow. Because, like John said, if there's pamphlets around, they can hide little pin cameras, which you can see you put your code in. Where you insert your card, I take it, I shake it, because if it's loose, it probably doesn't belong there. Whoa. So I would go inside and tell the bank. But that's just some stuff, just from doing this job and seeing it, but it's the stuff that they recommend you do. Restaurants, gas stations, they're very popular too. You go into a restaurant, like John said, you give it to, when you give someone your card and they have to leave, you don't know what's happening with that card. So if you're going to a restaurant and you're going to use your credit card or a debit card, maybe you could take the cash out first. Especially if you're going to use a debit card, why not go to your ATM and take the money out rather than once you hand your credit card to a worker and they have to leave, then you got to start wondering. Unfortunately, you got to think that everybody maybe is out there trying to take your identity. What else am I missing? How to safeguard your cards. What's that?
You touched on the ATM.
Yeah, I got the ATM. Safeguarding your cards. Like John said, only have a minimal amount of them, and you keep them in a secure place. If you do have 5 or 6 of them and you're going out, there's no reason to take 5 or 6 of them with you. Take 1 or 2 with you, depending on where you're going. Read your credit card statements when they come in. This is how everyone mostly finds out that they've been some type of victim of identity theft. Again, the scams, like, I know this goes away from identity theft, but the scams are what we mostly deal with, and this is how they get people's identity. People calling about charity. In the books we handed out, there's a pamphlet in there about charities, given to charities. There's certain questions you can ask them in that pamphlets. If they don't have the answers to them, you just hang up. Like John said, police departments, we don't solicit by telephone. We only solicit by mail. So I know I get them at my house. And I'm like, the big one is you won a prize. You won a prize, but you got to send money to get the money. You won the lottery. If you didn't play the lottery, you didn't win the lottery. Western Union and the Green Dot cards, if they're not a family member that you can confirm, they call up and, Grandma, it's John. Well, hang up and call John. See if John answers the phone. We had one where they called up and said that their son was in jail. Their grandson was in jail and he needed bail money. The police department isn't calling you to send them Western Union money to bail out your child. But this one was just recent, and they sent the money. And then they thought twice about it. She called her daughter to find out where her grandson was, and he was at home. After she sent the money.
After she wanted to do a little bit about the importance of guarding your trash.
Yes, I was going to get into that right now.
As well as your
Right.
mail. And also, if one of you can address the question, I've read a lot about insurance for identity protection. And if,
I could do the trash in the mail. The trash is very important. We talked about a shredder. You have to shred anything that has your personal identifiers on it. Any social security numbers, addresses, account numbers, all your bank statements, everything should be shredded. Like we spoke earlier, I believe the county truck, if you go on the website, it has what location it's going to be at on certain days. You bring your stuff there, and you watch it get shred. You don't just leave it on the corner there. You hand it to them personally, and they shred everything. Mail. We have a big problem here with people going on vacation, and they leave their mail in the mailbox. And it gets to a point where the mailbox can't even close. So these are people's jobs. They just drive around looking for houses that have a lot of newspapers, dry cleaning hanging up, because they know they haven't been around for a couple of days. So they'll go through your mail, and they'll take out any checks you have, your tax return checks. They'll take out credit card statements, and now they have all this information, and they're able to use it. You want to talk about insurance?
Yeah, there was a question over there.
Both myself and my wife have unique names, so we're one of a kind. Both myself and my wife have unique names. We're one of a kind of the country. So if you go on the website that do people search, a name comes up. And what happened this month is my wife's name came up against an address in Utah. So it had first name, middle initial, last name, different birth date. It wasn't a phone number, but it was a public record. Now, the owner of the house happens to be an expert in identity theft. Is there a scam under which someone can artificially create some kind of a public record as the first step in fabricating a false identity? Or does this ring any bells? Why someone would steal a name, use it in some kind of public record? And those are, police or bankruptcy or
Well, they could
court
be doing
event?
it to open up a line of credit. It could be the start of someone opening a line of credit. That's how they do it. So you can Google any one of you, Google your names, you're going to find out a lot of information about yourselves that people can use to start using it to build a line of credit or steal your identity.
I mean, at one time, there was a website, anybirthday.com. Finally, there's less and less of it, but you could put in somebody's name, and 50% of the time you could get their birthday. All you need is an address of record, date of birth to open an account, especially with a utility account, cell phone account, things like that. Unfortunately, that comes with the internet and the information. I think motor vehicles at one time, years ago, thought about putting that type of information online too, and then they realized we're opening the door for, all kinds of fraud.
Other questions? I'm wondering if
In that handout, that booklet that went out, there's a whole little booklet, Safeguarding Your Child's Future. And it's a lot to do with how you safeguard your own future. You know, no need to take their birth certificate, their social security card out of the house. If someone's requesting their social security card or their birth certificate, like the acronym SCAM, be stingy. Ask why. Why do they need it? What are they going to use it for? How long are they going to keep it on file? And when they're done with it, how are they going to dispose of it? There's a good thing in here if you got children in school. There's the FERPA, the Family Education Rights and Privacy Act, that's required for the schools to send out. And that allows you to sign it, decline, or accept that if you want your children, like when they send out school newsletters and yearbooks, you know, you can stop from having your child's photos, pictures, names, anything out of that. You know, that you have to opt out of that. So a lot of people do that. That way they can, you know, they keep their personal life private. You got to talk to your children about social media. Even posting pictures. You post pictures with, you got your Mamaroneck High School shirt on, and now they know you're from Mamaroneck High School, and you know you got a name. They're starting to collect information. You know, don't post photos where they can recognize where you're from, because now they can start gathering information, especially with your name attached to it. The computer, if they share a computer with you at home, if they share a family computer and they're sending their peers files, you know, are they accessing your files? You know, it all has to be done with secure passwords and stuff. So a lot of it has to do with the parents really talking to their children about, you know, they may use your computer to send their friend a legitimate, nice picture, not realizing that now they're giving them access into something else. And not that their friend is going to try and use it, but now someone may get access into their computer, and now they have your stuff. So there's a whole flyer on, a whole booklet on children. One thing you can do is a credit freeze. You can put a credit freeze on your child. Like people ask, does my child have a credit report? Well, you hope not, but you can, because if they have a credit report and they're under 16, they shouldn't, because you can't have credit. That means someone has gotten their identity. So you can ask for, there's an affidavit in here showing that you're the parents. You can request from one of those three credit agencies, you can request a credit report, and hopefully it comes back there isn't one on file. But if one comes back on file, now you realize it's been compromised. But you can request a credit freeze on your child. This way that credit can't be opened in his name. And you do that through those three agencies. What happens though, right before they turn 16, it's something you're gonna want to have lifted, because you know they're gonna start applying for student loans, credit. So that is probably one of the best options. I don't know if there's a fee, and I'm not sure if John knows. I don't think, if it is, it's very minor.
Yeah,
It'd be
less
worth
than
more than the
$20,
loss,
I
right.
think, yeah.
I don't think there's a fee to lock it, there's a fee
To
to
unlock it, I think,
okay.
yeah.
You could do the same thing with your own credit. You could put a freeze on your own credit. It's an inconvenience if you want to go get a car, you want to get a loan or something. But if you're not in the bit, you know, if you're not looking to buy something, you can actually freeze your credit for free instead of using LifeLock or one of these other places. You can freeze it, and then they charge you, it's like $5 every time you want to unfreeze it. And then you can say, I want it, you know you're buying a car, it's going to take you 3 months. You say, I want it unfrozen for 90 days. And you could do that through the FTC.
So there are ways to do it. There's a lot of good information in this. This is from the FTC. All the handouts are from the FTC, and there's handouts on everything you can think of. There's handouts out. The Detective Filikowski, I have my cards up here if you want them, if you have any questions. The top number is the general number to the police department. The next number is my number. You always feel free to call. You can leave a message. It doesn't matter if you don't live in a town, if you live in one of the villages. If we can't help you, we'll get you in touch with who can help you. Just real quick on medical stuff. There is some fraud with medical stuff, so how do you stop it? I don't know. You got to trust your doctor. You got to ask your doctor questions how to secure your information. One thing you do is monitor your medical claims coming in. You know, did you get this service? Not only that someone stole it, but is your doctor putting in for stuff that he shouldn't be putting in for? And a big thing is your prescription bottles. You know, they're recyclable. Make sure you peel off all your information. All your information is on that bottle. your name, your address, a lot of your information is on those prescription bottles. So, you know, yes, sir.
You say that, and that was my question before. How is it that we're staying ahead of the curve? Because everything is now automated. You know, even you said, you know, like if you just suspect,
Right.
you go to your home bank or you go inside the bank, but everything is so convenient, so automated, so
Right.
easy. How is it that you're staying ahead of the game?
There's
Because
just-
you said, okay, prescriptions. A few
Right.
weeks ago, we handed in all our prescription bottles.
Right.
There was a prescription handed.
Right.
And everybody just took their stuff and just gave it.
And,
Just relinquished it.
Right. Well, like, where'd you hand it into? Like, to the police, right?
Yeah.
Right, so then that gets transported by a police officer to a place where it gets destroyed. So, is there someone in that chain that can be doing it? Absolutely, but that's the legal way to do it. You know, I'm talking about empty bottles that you finish at home. Don't just throw them in your recycle bucket, take off the labels. But you're right, there's no 100%. There's, you know, on my personal accounts, I got an alert that if a certain amount is charged, it sends me a text to my phone immediately. So, because I went over my limit that I did. It's just, you know, you can do everything, but there's always going to be, with the technology we have these days, I'm not going to lie to you, I don't think there's 100% that you're ever going to be able to do it. I think the one behind you was from before you. You probably better answer that.
Yeah. We've actually had that in my office. One of my inspectors had her social security number stolen and someone filed taxes. And how she found out was when she went to file her taxes, her daughter was going to college. The IRS sent her a note saying you've already filed. It is a long, involved process. You start with, as the lieutenant said, filing a police report at the local level. Fortunately, here in Westchester, we have a lot of local PDs who are responsive. And then you have to notify the Internal Revenue Service, the Social Security Administration, and they have a whole process. And it's going to involve the same documentation, and then they will change your number. It's not something that's easily done, and unfortunately, a lot of times you need that number in the meantime. But they do have a process, and the IRS does have a group also that investigates, fraudulent tax returns. But that, unfortunately, is really a nightmare.
You want the IRS?
Yeah, you want-
Just to touch on that, the IRS just recently started a program where they'll work with the local law enforcement now. They never used to. They wouldn't provide you any information. They would self-investigate. There is now, if you go onto the IRS website, if you do find out that there was a tax return filed in your name already after you file, there's a form they have on their website that you fill out, submit to them, and then they will work with us, if that does happen.
Back there. Yeah.
So what are your thoughts about smartphones, being able to deposit checks and transfer money, is that a whole other level of?
Yeah, I just heard recently about the Chase ones, that they're having problems. Chase was having some problems, like how you take the picture of the check. I'm not sure, it didn't happen in our jurisdiction, but I had read something about it, so it's, the technology is part of the problem. It's great, but it's part of the problem. Yes, ma'am.
Can you explain what security is in the security code on the back of a credit card? When I order dinner in, for instance, from a restaurant, and they ask for my credit card number, they used to just take the credit card number. Now everyone is asking for the security code on the back. Does that compromise me in any way by giving it, or is there?
When you're ordering by phone like that, they're not able to swipe your card.
Right.
So those three numbers give them access to your credit, to the charge, because they can't get the information off the magnetic strip. You have to protect that like you would anything else. And that magnetic strip is a wealth of information that the credit card company has. So it's an additional step that's become more and more popular, so that if someone had stolen the numbers off the front of your card, let's say made an imprint of just the front of your card, now a merchant asks you for the security code, someone that stole the card and has only the front information and the expiration date can't authorize that charge. So it's another level. But that's in addition, or really in replacement for, there's not a physical swipe. Now, if you go overseas, it's a little different. The cards over there that are issued by banks over there have a magnetic chip in it. They don't do swipes. So that may be something we may see here in the next 5 to 10 years. But it really was an additional, to answer the question. They're giving it with chips? Yeah. That was really an additional level of security. But in that strip is the account information that's on the front, expiration date, and then another code for the processor.
Yes, sir.
Years ago, my daughter was applying for a credit card. I'm going to project like a professor. A number of years ago, my daughter was applying for a credit card at a local bank, and was informed that she couldn't. No, she was opening a bank account, and she was informed they wouldn't give her a bank account because they already had a credit card under that Social Security number. We know that it was under a different name. Right. It has never come back to us in any problem whatsoever, but we said, find out what this is about. And we went to Social Security and came back with proof that my daughter's Social Security number was her Social Security number. The bank then responded to us that they had verified the other person's Social Security, which they could not have done, or at least not effectively, I assume. What are the legal obligations of the bank? Eventually, this was solved because they had transposed two numbers.
Okay.
So it was completely innocent. But what are the obligations of the bank in a situation like that?
I'll jump on that. The way this is an issuing bank, or this is yeah. Well, okay. Remember, with a credit card, once you report it stolen, you're not responsible for any charges after you reported it. Previous to that, you're only responsible for charges up to $50. That's with a credit card. The debit card, a lot of the banks carry over that same procedure, but it's slightly different in that, remember, when you're using your debit card and if you're at the pump or at Modell's or wherever you are and you authorize debit, that's instant access to your checking account. So it's a little different. So the FTC rules don't carry over. The bank, the financial institution, has to make a good faith effort. Define good faith. You hear good things about banks, you hear bad things about banks. As a consumer, you make your choice based on your level of customer satisfaction, the services they provide. So, circumstances like that, they're going to make an effort. Are they going to make all the effort you think they should make? Maybe not. Close the account. A lot of people are afraid to change everything, and I understand that. There's a comfort level. You have all these accounts.
We didn't have an account.
Right. But, so they have to make a good faith effort, but.
We all know there are a ton of fraudulent Social
Right.
Security cards out there.
Right. Yeah, sir. Yeah.
On the previous question about the calls that are scams, I got the same call, I guess about 2 or 3 of them a day from you need to check your.
That's them now, right?
Yes.
Don't give him money.
And I actually got.
Fortunately, with my wife, I have no choice.
Uh-huh.
And I got a callback number. I mean, there are actually boiler rooms of people doing this. I knew it was a scam. Who can I complain to? If there's an actual telephone number you can get back to, it seems like it's prosecutable.
Well, the problem is that the phone number you're seeing, they got this thing called spoofing, where they're calling from a phone number, but that phone number is not the one that's showing up there. It's being routed through computers, and it's another phone number. That's why this one came back to a realtor up north. But
I was able to call
Right.
back the number.
and did they answer?
Yeah, I got a supervisor.
Right.
This is a rather elaborate scheme.
Well, you can call the police, and they'll take a report for a suspicious phone call, so that way if it continues or something, like I said, at least it's documented. So if down the line something happens, you have something on file. So whenever you get a phone call you're not comfortable with, you can call the general number to the police department. They'll send a car by your house, and they'll have you write a statement.
Well, it's not that level. They didn't steal anything from me,
But it's still suspicious. You say it's suspicious, right?
I mean, they're flooding the community with this.
Right,
Everybody
no, absolutely.
has gotten these
Right.
calls multiple times.
But
What's the call?
Excuse me?
What exactly are they saying?
They're saying that they're calling from Microsoft. And
Oh, okay.
something the matter with your computer. And what they may be doing, and they may not be doing identity theft, what they're
Right.
So it's a different.
Well, they may not be for Microsoft. So, I mean, they could just be trying to get you to give information over the phone, which we would advise against anyway.
Right, they want to access remotely, and then they have your stuff. So that's suspicious. That you need to call. You can call and document it. It's on file.
I
To be-
think.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
That's all right.
Just remember that, as the lieutenant said, the detective said, make the report. There may not need to take action, but information behind the scenes is shared. They share information with all the other police departments in Westchester. Then the DA's office, they have regular weekly, I think they have a weekly meetings, conference calls, those types of things. You can also, they handed out the booklet, notify the FTC. When there's a significant number of calls or activity, they will then open a case. It may take them months to complete a case, but they have to reach a certain threshold. And it's the same thing with spam, with everything like that. You may not see short-term results, but over time they will catch up with someone that's doing it. But the best, as we've all been saying, the best defense is, hanging up and not answering and, using other things. There's no law. I mean, you were not charged, so
Right.
there's not a,
Not a
not a
crime.
crime right to you.
Is there a way to have these calls stop? They're really obnoxious and frequent.
If you stop answering, they'll stop calling.
No, it doesn't work that way.
If you, like he said, if you use your voice, your answer machine as a filter, eventually they'll stop.
I have a phone that we use never. You had to have a triple play and
Right.
they gave you a telephone. I
Right.
never answer it, always goes to an answering machine. I get a call every morning at 8:10 from Capital One, trying to, it's from the same people, and they're not supposed to call.
If they leave a number, you try calling back and ask them not to call anymore. If it's legit.
It's a robocall, you can't call that.
If you hold down long enough, they sometimes say they'll take you off.
Yeah, and I tried that, and they didn't take me off the list.
I mean, it's illegal. I'm not doing this call.
A lot of times they're using technology it's just a computer dialing the next number in sequence, 1111 and 1112, things like that. So it's difficult if.
Is that worth reporting also?
Like Capital One?
Certainly to our agency. It may not be a police matter, but you can certainly report it to us, and then we would get to Capital One, if indeed it's them calling. Yeah.
If you're speaking to someone and you think they're trying to scam you or get into your computer, then that's worth the call to the police and it'll be documented.
How about the calls and it shows up on the phone as unknown? They never leave a message. But
Right.
I get it on my cell phone and home phone every morning, mid-afternoon, and several times a day on my cell phone. And I have no idea whether it's safe unknown or not. But
Right. No, I get them too. I get them on my cell phone. I get them at my house. I don't answer them.
no, I never answer them. But is there any way of
You can check with your service provider, whether it's Verizon, Sprint, AT&T. I know, just as an example, in our office, our phones are, if it's an unknown number trying to dial in, it's blocked.
It's blocked. Won't come in.
It will not, it'll reject it. And I know there's businesses that have that also. I know my local mechanic. If I'm calling from a blocked number, his phone will not accept that call. It automatically kicks it back and you get a message. This person will not accept blocked numbers. Check with your provider, whether you, depending on who you have, Verizon, whatever.
I'm wondering how many people here get the Microsoft calls.
That's what we've just been talking about.
Yeah.
I know, I got one.
They're focusing on your area code right now.
Well, I'm concerned about organizations like the Summit. I know a bank has a lot of security, but the Summit probably doesn't. We all sign that sign-in sheet, they have our email address, we have a phone number at one time or another, and how secure is that? Somebody gets that
I think we have one more question.
How do you get rid of license plates with cars if you change your license?
DMV.
Can't hear you.
Department of Motor Vehicles.
Repeat the question.
She wanna know how to get rid of a license plate. It's actually required that you bring it back to DMV, and I think they actually charge you $1 for you to give back your license plate.
Can't cancel your insurance with
Right.
that.
Yeah, make sure, yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
One of the ways that they can get you number 2 is delivery service. Our
Right.
daughter and son-in-law in California were scammed several times because they would pay with a delivery of food with a credit card.
Sure.
And it happened a couple
Oh,
of
they
times.
give the
They
number
don't
over
do
the
it
phone.
anymore.
Right.
They
Yeah.
don't do it anymore. The other thing is, what do you do about the people who call and then they lean on a buzzer? I don't answer, because I've got caller ID. There's one ALA, and then they'll lean on a buzzer. So this has happened for several, and can we still get a response from do not call? Because I'm on that list, and,
What does that mean?
I don't know how they do it, but if you don't answer the phone, we have an answer, or son answers, and then they go, "Boo," which is really loud
Oh,
and
that's a
very,
fax
very.
machine, like a fax machine.
Right. They're down.
That's a fax machine?
Yeah.
Yes.
Mhm.
Oh, I don't answer, but it's
Yeah.
very annoying if
It's a
you're
fax
sitting
machine.
there. Oh, okay.
I think if there are no further questions, I want to thank our guests. It was very informative and we really...
Talking to you.
Can't project, huh?
I wanted to thank our guests and everyone for coming. It was really informative. We appreciate your time. Very helpful, and thank you so very much.
Thank you.